Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Blue Marble Podcast and another special recording of Circle Sanctuary's Green Faith Circle. I'm your host, Rev Charbert. Thank you for tuning in. Here in this circle, we share personal stories about, climate impacts, climate solutions, climate justice, sustainable, regenerative living, various eco-activist adventures, all informed by our nature-based spirituality. And our purpose is to educate and to motivate, hoping to manifest some good energy for each other and for our planet. Welcome to our participants who are in the circle around the screen tonight, and to our featured presenter, Reverend Chip Brown. I want to invite each of you around the screen to just give a little intro about yourself. Nicholas, can I ask you to start?
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Nicholas. I'm down in Western Kentucky. We're going from warm to cold to warm to cold. I've been with Circle since the late 70s, so that's quite a long time. Sustainable living is something I've always been interested in, and I have a lot of friends who are engaged. Chip is, one of the big builders, so to speak. I have my own little sustainable yard and gardens and stuff like that, and my life is online, encouraging, learning, and doing what I can to support climate crisis issues and sustainable living. So that's me.
Great. Thanks, Nicholas. Reverend Judith.
Hello, I'm Reverend Judith. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and I've been a minister with Circle Sanctuary for over 2 years now, and a member of Green Faith, Circle's Green Faith organization since its founding over 2 years ago as well. And I serve the Circle community in many different ways, but most notably giving nature spirituality services to the recruits at Naval Station Great Lakes. And one of the things I often talk to them about is how important it is that we look out for the health and welfare of everyone on this planet, because we all need fresh air, we all need fresh water, clean water. And as they might be going into war, as military often does, I think it's just important that they remember that war also is damaging to the climate. So that's part of my message, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. Colleen.
Hi, I am located in the far southwestern suburbs of Chicago. I have been going to Circle Sanctuary and a part of its community for almost 30 years now. And my main contribution or connection to the community is artistically. In my life work, I work with seniors, specifically those with Alzheimer's, but in my artwork and with my work with seniors, much of it connects spirit and nature. So that connection is what informs my artwork. I do the logos for PSG and have been doing that for a very long time. And everything about the health of the climate and the planet and nature connects to spirituality, and it is the underlying basis of all things. And I grew up on a farm very far out in the country. So it's just part of how I do things.
Lovely, lovely. Chip, I'm gonna hold off on you for a second, because we're gonna say more about you, if that's okay. I'm a behavioral health professional and a spiritual leader, former broadcast journalist and a veteran, and I have been involved with climate activism now for a lot of years. And to me, it is just an overarching issue that is so intersectional. Everything I care about sort of falls under that umbrella. And I'm really excited tonight to hear about Chip's project that he's been working on with his spouse. So Chip, I'm going to brag on you for you. He is a retired attorney, historian, archaeologist, historic preservationist, and now an off-grid sustainable farmstead farmer. And throughout his career, Chip worked for the state of Wisconsin and with the Wisconsin resident tribes and nations to protect and preserve cultural resources, sacred sites, and human burial sites. And he and his spouse are building the first state-permitted, tire bale constructive, active and passive solar sustainable off-grid home in their state. And they've obtained approval for the first state-permitted vermiculture septic system for their home too. And they live on their land, they grow their own food, they raise their chickens, collecting, hauling water for all personal and agricultural use. And they hope that their efforts may be a model for folks to live a carbon neutral lifestyle while supporting themselves and assisting their families, communities, tribes, much needed in this time of climate change. So, Chip, we're so excited to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
And,
Char. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all in the circle this evening, and folks who are listening. As Char explained my background accurately. That's who I've been and what I'm doing. I've been affiliated with Circle. Found Circle as my spiritual home 40 years ago, a little more than that actually, and have been assisting with legal issues, legal advice, coordinating many activities on behalf of Circle Sanctuary, and especially for PSG, Pagan Spirit Gathering, and for many years now, 35 years I think now at PSG, working special issues coordinator and what have you. But to our topic, and I think that we'll talk about the spiritual elements of my background and what my wife Kimi and I are doing out here in New Mexico shortly as a part of this conversation. But for right now, we are in northwestern New Mexico. We are in the Baca Pruitt chapter of the Navajo Nation. It's part of the checkerboard area of the reservation system here in New Mexico. What is the state of New Mexico? We are on private land, and we are involved with the local community, with people who also share private lands around us. We are completely off-grid. There are no utilities to come into our area. We are several miles away from the closest full-time residents out here, and we rely on them, and they rely on us as part of our very small, very local community.
Chip, I wanted to say I'm so glad that you could be here with us tonight, because I'm respecting that Zoom isn't always reliable where you are. So
no, it's not. And as you know, yeah. Up until we started this, I was having difficulty with connectivity, and so we use Starlink. That is the only option we have. Again, there are no utilities coming through. There's no cable. There's nothing like that. We had used telephones at one point, but that was pretty onerous. The Starlink has been quite amazing for us out here. But that's yeah, and we talk to people.
You talk to people like this, and to sort of frame this for our audience. You know, one of the things that's being talked about a lot today, again, is this idea of sustainable living and the various issues involved with becoming more sustainable in our lifestyle choices. And I say again, because, you know, when I was growing up back in the day now, my parents were part of the Get Back to the Earth or Get Back to Nature movement in the 60s and 70s. And in those days, that meant buying up a bunch of land, often with some fixer-upper buildings on it, living off the land as much as was possible, not necessarily off the grid, and sometimes in community, sometimes as solo dwellers or single families. And today, that notion of living off the grid, living close to the land, is reemerging now that the climate crisis is real and communities all over the world are considering how to be more resilient. And I think also how, you know, some indigenous communities are getting more airtime on various platforms. So I just wanted to say briefly for our audience, if you didn't know, and for all of us in Green Faith Circle, we've been hearing about your journey with BrownKawa now for at least a couple of years. And being able to hear more about this journey is exciting. For anyone listening or viewing, BrownKawa Farmstead is, as Chip was mentioning, it's 140 acres on the south and southwest faces of a mesa in northwest New Mexico. And it is a pinyon juniper woodland crisscrossed by usually dry Aroros ecosystem. And for more information, I just want to direct everybody to brownkawa.com, the BrownKawa Farmstead site. And as we speak, you can mark that as a favorite and go back and check it out in more detail after the program. So brownkawa.com. So Chip, to kick us off, why do this? What is the aim or purpose of BrownKawa Farmstead?
Well, for me, there's a lot of background, as you might imagine, on this. But Kimi, my wife, and I determined that we were going to do the best we could to retire early from our respective jobs. I worked for the state. Kimi was a teacher in the Madison School District in Madison, Wisconsin. And we were in Wisconsin. And we had both concluded 10 years ago that we were ready for a move. We wanted to relocate from the colder, darker climes of Wisconsin to somewhere warmer. And I had been visiting friends and family relatives down here in New Mexico for more than 40 years and loved the place. And so as our retirement time approached, which was almost 5 years ago now, we were looking for something down here. But a part of that goal was, in moving down here, we want to demonstrate and we want to live a life of self-sufficiency. We wanted to use materials that were associated with and part of the land. We wanted to work with our land and do what we could to enhance its productivity, to be cautious and careful with water, to do what we could to restore and rejuvenate the landscape. And a lot of those ideas came in after we determined where literally we were going to live, because we're in an area where 800 to 1,000 years ago, the climate changed, and the Anasazi people, the Pueblo and people who were living here at that time had severe challenges. And we're facing those same challenges today with climate change. And certainly here, we're in a very arid environment. Water is scarce and is a challenging resource for people to manage. There are all kinds of competitive elements out here looking to use the water, looking to take water rights, mineral rights, etc. I mean, it tends to be one of those things here in the state of New Mexico that is precious. There's not a lot of development here in the state. It is the third poorest state in the nation. And so we are in competition for resources. And for our purposes, we felt we need to preserve the resources. Of course we do. We are looking to put something together that's at least carbon neutral, if not carbon negative. And so that idea, I think, is addressed by what we've done with constructing our house, with how we've constructed our house. We're using recycled waste materials, tires. 7 years ago now, we did research into the kind of structure that we would build in this environment. And we thought, well, it's got to be efficient. It's got to take care of us. We love the philosophy of Michael Reynolds, who put together the earth ships out of Taos, New Mexico, down here. This house that we're building, I think of it as being alive. It is alive. It's a part of us. It's a part of our environment. We're using local adobes and clays. We have gotten tires. This is really the kicker for us in terms of what people can do moving forward. Just an aside here, I'll explain this. Tires are an incredible source of problems. They generate disease. They breed mosquitoes and insects and other kinds of ailments that are really terrible. And we have a grotesque overabundance of waste tires in this country. I mean, across the planet. Our landfill here, the through landfill, has, what I was told, close to 1 billion tires. They're a massive, massive landfill. And we went out and saw these miles upon miles of tire bales just stacked everywhere. They don't know what to do with them. We are aware in our research with Michael Reynolds, looking at earthships, Reynolds used tires in his design. He thought, we can recycle tires. And so in the earthship designs, they incorporate about 1,000 tires in the perimeter construction. It's a U-shaped construction. The open front faces south to enhance solar gain, to incorporate your solar panels, etc. We can talk about more of that in a minute. But the way that they construct their buildings is incredibly labor intensive. My wife and I are both in our 60s. We're pretty active and pretty strong and able and what have you, but the notion of pounding 1,000 tires full of sand with sledgehammers and stacking them up in a single row was really daunting, and something that we thought, we cannot do this. And a huge part of this project was we can do this in our retirement. And that is what we have been doing now for the last 3 years. These are things that are not out of our purview, not out of our abilities. We can do research and learn and how to construct this stuff. And that's what we're doing. Anyway, our tires are formed into bales. And these bales are about 4 feet by 5 feet by 2.5 feet. They're like Lego blocks, essentially. They're used in water retention projects, in erosion control projects. They have been incorporated into these massive earthworks through state and federal government projects for at least 20 years now. So there's a lot of information about these tire bales. And we thought, why shouldn't we build a house out of this? Now, across the country, there may be 15 or 20 other of these houses, residences made of tire bales. And we've been in touch with half of those people. What have their problems been? How have they done this? We've visited with folks and that sort of thing about what help us out. We have a glitch. What can we do? And they've been through it or they haven't. So we can network on that. In any event, the tires that we're using now, we have incorporated 90 tire bales in our house, creating walls that are about 6 feet thick, incredibly dense, massive, thermally efficient. The best minimum guess that we saw with the thermal efficiency of these tires, if they were not covered with anything, was upwards of 40. The R values of these for wall insulation, which for just stacking up a bunch of tires is pretty incredible. You just don't get that in the walls of your homes. In fact, most walls are required to be R19 for insulation or R20 for insulation purposes. So our walls are also covered with shotcrete. There's a story there. We had not wanted to do that. We wanted to use Adobe, and we realized in talking to others who had done that, that was an extraordinarily time-consuming or manpower, human power intensive enterprise, and would have taken us 6 to 8 months to complete that because the bales themselves are so large. The footprint of the building is about 75 by 35 feet from the outside of the walls. The interior space is about 1,000 square feet. That's how much area the tires consume. And so you have to cover the entire surface area of those tires with something. So we went with shotcrete. We found one person who could do that. And they came out to our site from Albuquerque. It was about a 2-hour trip each way for them to come out. And they were game. And they did it. And so back to the insulation factor, we're probably looking at insulation now with about 6 inches of concrete, 3 inside, 3 outside. But the top, the bottom is fully embedded, etc. We're thinking that we're probably upwards of 60 or 70 R value on the tires. And we have temperature data that we've now collected for 1.5 years. And we see that the temperature fluctuates from the lowest low in the winter with no insulation in our front wall, which is the only stick-built element of our building. The lowest temperature we've seen is about freezing. There is no HVAC in this house. The highest temperature in the summer has gotten to about 80 degrees in the house. On any given day, you can see the fluctuation of about 7 degrees from the low at night to the high during the day without any heating source or cooling source. And so it's remarkably efficient as it is now. We still have two doors to put on. We have a front wall to fully insulate. We have solar to put on. So we're prepared in the event that we need something. I mean, we've got some heaters and that sort of thing. And we do have some state requirements. And I'd like to come back to that at the end as a special caveat for folks who are listening to this. But I guess the one point that I didn't make yet that I wanted to make, I don't know if I said this or not, we have incorporated, 9,000 scrap tires into this construction, which is a huge hit. And so the landfill and others involved in this are incredibly excited to see this move ahead, because if folks could take these bales, which cost us nothing, from the landfill, and in fact, the landfill is close enough that working with them, they saw what we were doing. They were very excited. They literally delivered 80 of the tire bales to our house on their trucks to help us get this thing underway. So they're incredibly excited. And I will tell you, we completed the tire bale wastewater permit requirements 2 weeks ago to the satisfaction of the state. So we did what we needed to do with these waste tires. And so aside from the rest of this stuff, I think that's exciting. As Shar said, this is the first tire bale constructed house, formally permitted house in the state of New Mexico. And our goal, our hope is others will be able to follow suit and do this. People don't need to build a massive thing like we built. It could be a rather small structure. You could use, 20 tire bales and stack them up and put a Viga roof on there, and you're all set, and you've got something that will sustain you. You put a little greenhouse on the front, like an airship does. My gosh, the house will keep you alive. It will feed you. The roof, we have a 3,000 square foot roof, which is much larger than the interior. As I said, that's 1,000 square feet. The roof is supported by timbers and beams across the front and the tire bale structure across the back and the sides. And that is water catchment. We have to haul water. We do not have a well. We did not want to put in a well. We thought that the water table is sufficiently tenuous as it is. We don't need to go put in a well right now if we don't have to. We have 3,100 gallons of cisterns behind the house. And last year, well, actually 2 years ago, when we put them in, they filled up in less than 2 weeks during the monsoon. That's how much water is generated off of your roof, off of this roof. So thinking about it, smaller scale project, still in the monsoon, you could fill up 2, 3, 4, 5,000 gallons in no time, even with the drought that we're in here. And the amount of rainfall that we get, you do the calculations, you will see that that is the case. There are many, many folks out here in need of opportunity to create reasonable living space, to generate decent food, local food, food that is healthy and suitable and traditional, etc. And I think that this kind of a construction can be translated. When our house is finished, we're looking forward to putting together a very small project on another piece of our property that will just be a very small footprint, tire bale house that would be like a small house, but made of tire bales, and hopefully would cost almost nothing. Gathered materials. If people come together as a community, perhaps folks might be able to do something like a cob, adobe facade face on all the tires, maybe a quick stick built front, a couple of doors. You're all set. You face it south. It's kind of like you wind it up, you turn it on, and away it goes. I mean, so far from what we can tell, that is what's happening here. So our goal, our dream has been every element of this needs to be of use, translatable, something that is a minor or no footprint on the landscape, something that gives back. Another element of this that's really important and really significant for us is the vermiculture septic system that we put in. It's a residential worm composting of our septage. All the black water that comes out of the house, the toilets, the kitchen sink, whatever it is that you're putting into your disposal system. We discovered that in Australia, in New Zealand, in Portugal, other places around the world, they're using worms. These are earthworms that will digest this waste material and produce an effluent, the water that goes out into your drain field, that is virtually pure by comparison to what goes into a drain field out of a traditional anaerobic septic system. So this is an aerobic system. It took us a year to get an experimental variance use permit to put this system in here at our home, but we did get the permits. It is now built. We have not put it online yet because we're not living in the house. So as soon as we're running water out of the house and waste, that's when we will get the earthworms. There's a great farm in Texas that produces earthworms. We've already gotten them for some of our composting systems. And we are very excited about that. One of the conditions that we have to meet for this is quarterly testing. So we have a testing facility already identified. We have a testing apparatus at the base of our worm bin, our worm system, so that we'll be taking the effluent out, making sure that everything looks good, quarterly testing. After we've done this for a year or two, I can't remember what our conditions were on that, we will be non-experimental and we will have our full use and our full acceptance. As far as we know, this is the first residential vermiculture septic system in the country. So we are very excited about publishing the data, letting people know how efficient, how inexpensive that's the shocking thing. There's another aside story about the septic system. First of all, my wife, Kimi, did tremendous research. She did all of the research and the applications and fought with the state. And finally, we had success with them in getting this conditional use permit. So Kimi did a huge amount of work doing that. What we discovered, oh, I lost my track there. Let's see.
So, well, while you lost your track, no, I mean, there's so much, and your passion about it is understandable. It's really remarkable. Yeah. I'm just wondering, because I noticed on the site, it talks about phases 1, 2, and 3. And I'm kind of interested in, what was phase 1, 2, and 3? What were the biggest accomplishments and hurdles of those phases, maybe, if you're willing to talk about that?
Yes, I can. When we first got here, our thought was we need a place to live. We came out here in a pop-up camper that gave us about 4 feet by 7 feet of floor space and 2 beds on either end. Literally, a pop-up tent camper, the little camper that you see. Well, this will be our 5th winter living in that pop-up camper. We are still in that camper, and it's again, it's kept us going, so that's pretty amazing. I did modify it. I put a bed in there. Anyway, first thing was to build the house. But what we decided was, no, let's focus on the land. Let's focus on community. Let's focus on food production. We built a very special greenhouse. It's called a greenhouse in the snow. You can look that up. It was developed in Nebraska 45 years ago about. The amazing thing about the greenhouse is it's excavated 4 or 5 feet down. It's linear. It faces south. The back of the greenhouse is wood construction and fully insulated. The front, probably 70% of the area exposed to the air is Lexan panels. And so it's highly efficient. We have 260 feet of geothermal tubing and a blower that is powered by photovoltaic. So the blower produces 50 to 55 degree temperature year round. So in the winter, when it's cold, it drops below 50 or 45. The blower comes on, pumps air in, and sustains the greenhouse. In the summer, before we did some other things, we realized that the greenhouse could get to 130 degrees in no time at all. So we put a sunshade on the greenhouse to block out some of the sun, and then the blower would keep the greenhouse cool for the rest of the time. And so it works incredibly well. So we have a 12-month, 24/7 greenhouse that is producing citrus, figs, bananas. We have any kind of tree you can imagine, fruit trees that you want to put in your greenhouse, you can. It'll sustain it. We have numerous tomato plants, cherry tomatoes, which we really like, that are now 3 years old, and they are producing fruit constantly. So we're always having fresh cherry tomatoes. We have grown
happy tomatoes.
Yes. We've grown microgreens, lettuces, potatoes, carrots. I mean, you name it, it's all ready to go. But that was phase 1. And so for the first year, we got certification to sell our food. We went to the farmer's market, telling everyone what we're doing. We got certified to give produce to local schools and senior centers. So we were certified by the state to do this. We got chickens. We now have 27 chickens, 24 laying hens, and 3 roosters. We have 3 different hen houses that we maintain. And all of this through a very small photovoltaic system that is attached to the greenhouse and our camper, and that has nothing to do with a much larger system that we'll be installing on the house. In any event, like I said, the first phase, food production. So that was what we focused on. And then we realized that, we could do this for the rest of our lives, just food production. We had outside gardens too. And we thought, no, we have to live in a house. The camper's not going to keep us forever. So we really then, that was the big goal, was this sustainable home that could be, the ideas could be shared with people. So the following year, we put in for the permit for the home. Kimi and I are the general contractors on the house. And so we have done virtually everything on the house. We've hired a couple of crews to come in with big machines. The cement company has come in to pour foundations and that sort of stuff. And virtually everyone, except the Gary, the guy who did the shotcrete from Albuquerque, all the folks have been local. And so we're really excited about that. I mean, we're friends with folks that they live nearby from various communities. And so that's pretty tremendous. So the next phase was building the house. We got the permit for the tires. We put those in place. We succeeded in getting the permit for the vermiculture system, and that now is fully installed and in place. We're moving forward with incorporating more natural elements into the house, and this is all part of the phase 2, I guess. That is, we're using scoria, pumice rock, for 16-inch bag walls that we put on the house is on a slope. It's got a shed roof, and so the tire bales come up on a level plane. And then there's a triangular section of wall that is constructed of 16-inch wide bags that are full of pumice rock and then covered with lime plaster. And so that is finished. All those are in place. Very, very efficient. Pumice is incredibly efficient as a construction material. So that was also part of phase 2. We got that done. Now the next thing is pouring local adobe into our floors, local adobe on the interior walls, and we've just started that. As I said, all the exterior work was finished before the freeze 2 weeks ago. I guess I was speaking to you folks earlier about that. So our goal was to complete the exterior envelope, and we did that before the freeze kicked in, and that was really a significant goal for us. So we achieved that. Now we're moving inside, and the days are warm enough here. We're at about 7,200 feet elevation in the northwest where we are. So it can be cold in the winter, but having come from Wisconsin, it's nothing like that. The daytime usually, even in the worst days, gets to 40 or so. So we can mix our materials outside, bring them into the house. So we've already started to pour clay floor. We've also gotten about 30% of our floor material is saltillo tile, handmade tiles from Mexico that are just these incredible handmade utilitarian tiles that are just beautiful. And many homes down here use them. They're about 3/4 of an inch thick. They retain heat. They're a great source of energy retention for our passive solar element in the house. The front of the house has, sorry, I'm digressing a little bit now. The front of the house has 7 clear story windows above the shed roof that holds the solar panels. And those roofs were designed with an overhanging eave on the roof so that at the time of about the fall equinox, the windows start to become exposed. And through the winter, those windows are fully exposed to sunlight. And the sunlight goes into the house, hits the clay and the mass in there to retain heat. In wintertime, I said, yeah. So then at the spring equinox, the sunlight has started to move above the house. And so then the windows, the clear stories up at the top are in shade. No more sunlight is going directly into the house. And the house is now becoming naturally cool. And it's retaining the temperature. So it's staying cool because less heat is moving, less sunlight is moving into the house. And so it kind of works like that. And on paper, it looked great. And it looks like the performance data with temperature that we've maintained now for 1.5 years shows that that continues to be the case. And so we're very, very excited that the house is performing. And so that's, I don't want to characterize it like that. The house is alive, the house is sustaining us. So, but it's performing the way we had hoped that it would.
Yeah, no, we're getting a sense of the dynamics of that living structure. And I'm just wondering, I can imagine some people might be listening to this and going, wow, this is incredible. But, 2 professionals, retired, probably independently wealthy, got some land. I mean, I'm not doing that. Do you have to be rich or privileged to develop something like this? I mean, when you say replicable, is that for everybody?
I hope so. And when our house is finished, it's kind of like what we had imagined. It's a compromise of things. You always have a dream house thing that you want to retire into and that sort of thing. And so we thought, well, we're building it. Let's build it the way we would like it to be. But when we retired, I will tell you this, all kidding aside, we decided that we would take a vow of poverty in a sense. I think most folks would not have retired as early as we did. But, I think we both
Wow.
I look at it and I think we're 3 years moving on this house. It's how long it's taken 2 of us in our 60s to do it. Mostly alone, but we've hired some, local folks to help and that sort of thing. Yeah, I believe that you do not have to have money to do this. And that was the goal. It was like, if we can't do this, financially, then, we're going to quit. And so far, I think things have taken a little longer. I mean, I'll tell you, COVID didn't help because our materials cost jumped up, 1.5, 2.5 times over the 2 years of COVID. And we were blown away by that. That was not something we could predict. So that hurt. But, we were able to do it. But I think if you had a smaller structure, it would work fine. The vermiculture issue. Sorry, I can come back to that now. What I was thinking of was how inexpensive it was. It's one 275-gallon tote that we use to haul water back and forth to a well down the road where we collect our water from. Out here, used ones cost anywhere between $50 and $100. That's your septic tank. You bury that in the ground. The principles are the same. The effluent, the waste flows out of your house into the tank. So you got a PVC pipe, maybe, Schedule 40 or something. So that'll cost you a couple $100 for that. It goes into your tank, another $50 or $100 for that. You get some more pipe that goes out into your drain field, and you branch off more PVC on your drain field. That's it. So we're talking at, I don't know, less than $1,000 for you to put in a septic system you can excavate essentially by hand. So it is not financially onerous task to do this. And waste is a problem everywhere. Out here in rural areas, it's a mess. Municipal facilities are failing. They don't know what to do. We're pushing the vermiculture thing because it's aerobic. They eat the waste. They digest the waste. You can't have too much waste for worms to digest and then produce this effluent, this water that you can use literally. And one of our goals here is to demonstrate this. You can use it to water your crops. And so our goal is eventually that through our testing, we're going to demonstrate how clean the water is, and we will be using it on trees, fruit trees, and what have you. I mean, it's still waste effluent, and so you don't want to be spraying your crops with it probably, but who knows? Time will tell whether the water in fact is clean enough. But at least you can produce fruit-producing trees, berry bushes, those kinds of things that will do very, very well. And I think that that's something people would really not want to do in a traditional anaerobic waste processor that is what our current septic systems are. So thank you. That was the point that I lost my train of thought on, was the cost associated with that vermicultural system. So then you've got what? Power. You're off grid. You can connect to the grid. You don't have an issue. You just wire up your house. You put in a few circuits in your small house and you're all set. We do all of our cooking outside. We have outside kitchen. And I'll tell you, we've gotten used to it. We like it. One of the sides of the house that we're building will be an outside kitchen. Though we love to cook and we love to eat, and we really look forward to having the opportunity for a kitchen again. So that's one of the things inside the house we're going to focus on, because that's, we want to do that. And, we're growing food and processing food, and we have the ability to sell things that we make at the farmer's market and share with the community and that sort of thing. So it's what we want to do. But I love the idea of the outside kitchen. I mean, that's 5 years now. That's what we've used. And so right outside your house, you put in another shed roof off the side, and you put a little stove out there. And if you've got photovoltaic, that'd probably be the most expensive part of the house if you had a heavy duty PV system. But if you've got a small house and you don't have tremendous needs, I mean, if you've got a welding shop, you're going to need power. But if you're just living out there on the land, small footprint, you don't need that kind of power. Your PV system, that could cost $5,000 to $10,000 if you had a big PV system. So that could be the lion's share of the cost. Water pumps and those sorts of things, they're not so expensive. I mean, you look at it, you go into your local Home Depot and what have you, get PEX for your plumbing. I know the fittings are expensive. I mean, we could go into the nitty-gritty details about how all this stuff works and the costs and all that sort of stuff. But I think what we've discovered is the house elements, the necessary elements, are not so expensive that ordinary people couldn't do it. And in fact, ordinary people live in houses, right? I mean, you're going to buy a finished house, or you're going to build a house, or you're going to rent a house. But somewhere there's a monetary energy that goes into the house. And my contention is using these recycled materials, helping the planet in this way, small footprint, negative carbon footprint, you can build something for cheaper than a traditional house, and it will be more efficient, and it will help you. It'll carry you through the rest of your life, and you will love it. So
arguably, a lot of us are going to have to learn to be living this way, arguably, and how exciting that it can be done beautifully, and I'm just thinking, as I know other folks listening are, as you described the home and how alive it is, specifically, how is your nature-based spirituality informing each of these decisions you're making about the home and this project?
Oh, right. So into phase 3, I guess the big picture is I look forward to moving more into food production, community involvement with producing food, sharing these ideas with people, teaching to the extent that that's relevant, showing folks what we're doing, really, showing by example, that sort of thing. But my spirituality, nature-based spirituality, tells me we need to protect the earth. Our earth is in a dire situation. Gaia is not happy. My belief is Gaia is going to survive. What are we? I don't know. But I think that we need to do everything we can, because Gaia sustains us and supports us, and we need to do that as well. And that is how we must behave as pagans. It's how I have behaved through my whole life, whether it is looking at my circle paganism, whether it's looking at the various branches of my ancestry, my native ancestry. I don't care which native group you look to. Everyone is saying the same thing, in essence, that the earth needs us. We need to understand that and recognize it and relearn what we used to do, our old pathways, with living in harmony, living with just enough, not amassing whatever we can. And there is so much of that happening right now. And I think that is also a function of what's happening to the earth. There are many people who think, well, this is the last gasp. I need to do what I can to grab as much as I can. And it's a really shocking thing. But I think that I understand some of that. But I think in my mind, and my wife and I, that is the opposite direction that we're trying to go. We're trying to do everything we can to make this place sustainable for as long as possible. And so another thing that we had done last year was to apply for a grant for land restoration, for water retention, for native plant growth. We succeeded in getting the grant. It was through our Soil and Water Conservation District and the state of New Mexico. And it was sizable. It would have helped, but we realized that we can't build the house and do the grant and do all of this at the same time. And we really do have to finish the house. I mean, that, it's become the thing for us. And so our focus now is completing what we've started here and then moving on. And what they told us too was that no harm, no foul. You're not going to be judged because you didn't take it this year. So we'll probably apply again next year. And I think that, we're looking forward to doing that. It'll involve protecting our arroyos, putting in one rock dams, putting in zuni bowls to retain the water to see if we can't regenerate growth that traditionally may have been there, in times of no drought and that sort of thing. Perhaps reestablish wells that appear at the lowest point of our property that no longer run. I think that there are ways that we can replenish the shallow aquifer and allow for animals to have watering holes, for example. There is no water, standing water out where we are. And so animals will pass through, but there's not a lot of that. So that would be phase 3. And the other part of phase 3 is having retreats, spiritual retreats. I am looking forward so much to immersing myself into my spiritual practices and ministerial work and what have you, and bringing people out here to experience this for rites of passage, for spiritual development and enlivening and what have you. And this place speaks to me, and I think because of that, I can share that what that means to me, and I think I can bring that sort of peace and love that comes out of this land with folks who come out. And so I am so looking forward to doing that. The house building is great. I love it. I love working with my hands. I've become a jack of all trades. I'm an auto repair guy. I fix our gas cars. I fix my diesel truck. I do all of that kind of work. I'm a carpenter. I'm a bricklayer. I'm an electrician. I had to take and pass the state's electrical test in order to do that work. All of those things necessary to put something like this together, Kimi and I, my wife and I, have become. And it's more than a necessity. It's out of love. It's like the goal is to put this thing in practice and make it work and show people how it can be done, that this is possible. It's not impossible, we're doing it, and we're old and it's working. And so that's the message, really. And I think that we're just so excited about this. So that's phase 3. And I don't know, did I answer your question?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, would it be all right with you if I went back to gallery view, and would it be the time to allow some of the other folks to maybe comment and ask further questions about it? I didn't want to take out a chunk of more information if you had more you wanted to share.
Please, no, that would be wonderful.
So folks, I'm going to do that. And if you have a comment or a question about what you've been hearing so far, it's very inspiring, isn't it? Yeah, Colleen.
I've known Chip for many, many years, and I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am that I tuned in tonight.
Thank you.
I have a friend with a modified earthship in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. I have been researching rammed earth construction, and my sister and I were just talking about greenhouses in the snow this morning.
Excellent.
It's, when I said I grew up on a farm, it was a real old school. Our kitchen garden was a half acre. And so that is, my question. So you lived in Wisconsin. What is the feasibility of this being done in Wisconsin? The one that our friends did, obviously he modified it dramatically. It's an underground bermed earthship, and he built all the things into it because he's actually a builder of private planes. So he knew how to do all the fancy business. But what about the kind that you're doing in Wisconsin? Is that feasible in that climate? Because that's the climate I like.
Absolutely. I 100%. There's no question about it. The greenhouse in the snow, you can do that anywhere. Nebraska winters are brutal. I mean, that's where it was designed and implemented. So absolutely there's that. And that was the first thing we did. So I'll say that first. The tire bale construction, the mass and the efficiency doesn't change. It doesn't matter where you are. You too, and I would recommend this. We bermed the back of our house. We wanted it bermed all the way up to the eaves, but the engineer wouldn't, and the state, and is like, okay, we bermed it as much as we could, which was 4 feet up the back. And so the earth berming, I believe, is so important. If you can do it, do it. Carve out your hemispheric subterranean element and build your tire bales into it, and you'll have a home that will never need heat and will never need air conditioning. And I don't care where it is, if it's in the Arctic Circle or it's Wisconsin or it's here or it's in Panama. I mean, same thing. Tire bales, it's not like I'm the tire bale guru or pusher or anything, but I look at them as this is one way people can do two things: create an affordable and efficient structure and make use of a horrible waste material that isn't going away. So, you win all the way around there. Yeah, you can.
Well,
Wisconsin.
and it sounded so much more approachable than the rammed earth, like you were talking about, where you're trying to put that clay into those tires. That is really, that's very labor intensive. So this has taken so much of that out of it.
Absolutely. I agree with you that intensity of work, we couldn't do it. We would have had to,
hernia.
Right.
Running between 55 and 60, exactly. Rammed earth starts looking a little more challenging.
Right. It's gorgeous. Rammed earth is so exciting. And we saw so many videos and saw, examples of rammed earth construction. That's an incredible undertaking. It is not easy. We concluded we couldn't build a house like that. We just couldn't do it. And our artistic outlets are satisfied, I think, with this newfound interest in clay. And so we can do anything in our house. We can cover the wood. We can build sculptures and stuff. And it's amazing. It's really cool, So
Chip, you're never going to develop dementia. You guys are going to stay so active, you will never develop dementia. Keep your brains active. I mean, seriously.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah. If you, we have information on our site and we've got resources on there. And if you please reach out, Colleen, it'd be great to talk to you about this. Got our engineer in Portland. He was a little Portland, Oregon fixated, I guess, but I understand it. That's where he was, but he was willing to work with us. He had never done it. And he and his staff put together the materials we needed to get our permit in New Mexico. He had the credential for New Mexico, and so it worked. It's beautiful. There are some things that I think perhaps may not be necessary. And I think that for Wisconsin, climate's different. But I think that tire bales are incredibly resilient, and they're not going to fall apart or fall over or anything like that. But we could definitely talk some more. I'd love to talk some more about that. So yeah.
So BrownKawa.com for people who want to know more. You even have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 discussion there, sort of reiterating some of the things you talked about. Nicholas, Judith, did you all have comments or questions?
I'd like to make some brief comments. This is really exciting to see. I've been following the website already, so I've seen photos and some of the steps in the process. But as I said earlier, I think I said, maybe I thought, I've seen a lot, and it's really nice to see the different pieces that I've seen converge in this particular project. And I always talk about math, and for me, math is always streaming through my head. And can it be done here? Can it be done there? And I think about the time I've spent out in Hot Springs with Shante, and I've seen some of the stuff there. Maybe not all of the pieces, but I've seen it. And follow things online, and Sweden and places north. One of the things I thought was kind of fascinating, and this is a math thing, this is, something you can do where you are, Chip, but up in Wisconsin, you can't do it. And I kind of learned it by moving to Kentucky. And it's the thing about the autumn equinox and the spring equinox and where the sun is.
Yeah.
Well, in Wisconsin, the sun's in a different place.
Yes.
So that little mechanic that you got going with your windows up top works real good there. Where I'm here in Kentucky, the sun is, up above, almost straight up, not quite straight up. And so, my gardens are a little beth in terms of when's the shade and when's not the shade. When is the sun coming this way and when the sun going that way? So it's just really fascinating to listen and, think about my own place and the places where other people are that I know that, do all the big project or, small pieces of this project. So this is very exciting for me. So there you go.
Thanks. I'll just suggest on the heels of the last comment of how everything came together here. It came together here based on the design work that Kimmy and I had done to put together the house. There are incredible tools available for looking at the sun, different times of the year, different times of day, where are they going, how big are your windows, where do you put them, and all that sort of thing. I can tell you that idea of how your house functions for you, how your living structure functions is replicable across the country, north or south. Your walls can shift like this, and your windows can be here, and you can have an overhanging eave that is of a different shape and design. You can still pull that sunlight in and have those changes occur at the equinoxes, just like we do, with a slightly different shape. The Earth's shape actually is not vertical like ours is. It is on a slope. It's about a 30-degree slope, the front windows. And the greenhouse in the front is also, and ours is not. We have a porch roof, but it's flat all the way across. We don't need that. When we looked at the calculations and the heat loss and the heat gain and the solar activity and what have you, we were pretty pleased with pulling the porch roof out about 10 feet, putting glass on the front, slope at 34 degrees to put the panels on so that it maximizes winter and summer sunlight, sufficiently downslope on the windows so that we're not missing anything, all of that. But you can do that anywhere. That engineering is, and you can easily design the house to have a sloped wall. That's not, but anyway, sorry, I just wanted to, for folks who are in northern climes, you can still engineer this in a way that would provide, I think, that sort of solar effect to the greatest benefit for you. Thank you for mentioning that, because that's important, I think. Yeah.
Well, I am not in a position to actually build anything right now living in the city. However, I think it's so important to be hearing about this. I've been researching the tire building. I've been researching the solar aspect of it. And I'm just so fascinated and so excited about the fact that this is development. This is really coming to the fore. So for us to be talking about this in a public way and putting out this great information, Chip, thank you so much for sharing everything that you're going through. It's just amazing, and I cannot wait to come and visit you. So
please,
thank you.
right. Yeah, we're here.
You're going to be ready to host PSG. Yeah, that's right now.
We've talked about it. Not a lot of infrastructure here. It's can you go without water?
I'm thinking of tying all this, like Judith was saying, to conversation in the larger climate space, which really is starting to bypass the language of sustainability and introduce the language of regeneration. And I'm seeing Gaia is going to force this issue if we don't get more proactive about it. We're doing what we can to learn to reclaim these wonderful earth wisdom skills. But civilizations come and go. Human civilizations crash and burn and become something else. And so the whole notion of a regenerative culture coming is one that offers me hope, because we see new ways of learning to live on the earth, being allies with the earth, reclaiming a lot of ancient earth wisdom, And for me, this whole project that you're doing is one of the manifestations of that, because this is regenerative.
Yeah.
It's a regenerative settlement, I guess, is how it strikes me. I'm wondering, Chip, if as some closing words here, if you've got words of hope for people who are worried about what may come, and how choosing to live in a regenerative way like this is giving you a sense of hope.
Oh, absolutely. Do it, Colleen, your hands up. Did you? I mean, maybe I'll
Oh,
hold my
sorry,
concluding
Colleen.
remarks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a, what Nicholas was talking about in working with Shante, chop wood, haul water. The level of how you change your spiritual connection when you do it through activities that are specifically and connected to the earth in that fashion, and you have to slow down to mix up the clay and smooth the clay, and it has to happen when it's going to be 48 degrees when you have to start paying attention to that. It brings your spirituality so much into your real life. It becomes something not separated but integrated, and it just, yeah.
You are so right. The transition from 40 years, well, not quite, but city dwelling, city working, and coming down here, where we are alone with all of this, with the love and the energy of place, has been extraordinary. And that, oh boy, and for me, that's the biggest, most helpful part of this. That energy is there for you. Just feel it through your feet. I mean, go out and walk around. I mean, I go out and I look at the sky every night and I see the constellations moving across, and I know every single one of them, and I know what time of year it is, and I know what time of night it is by looking at the stars. I mean, I couldn't do that in Madison. I mean, this is years of being out here now, 5, it's not that long, but we drive away or I go on an errand or something, and it's like a rubber band. I'm going out there and it's like, but I want to go back. I want to be back home. But that's not to say that I don't love people and that community, because I know everyone is different. Most folks probably wouldn't want to do this or would find it too challenging or something. Whatever. And that's okay. But I think what it's about is plugging into the environment around you. It's not just the built environment. It's not just other people. It's what are you doing where you are? How are you using where you are in your life every day? And that is something that, for me anyway, being plugged in out here, I couldn't help but experience it, because it is a part of who I am. I have dirt under my fingernails. My shoes are full of rocks, and I've got paint all over my clothes because of what I'm doing and what I'm touching and what I'm experiencing every day. It's a part of who I am now. Not that I didn't experience that sort of love of nature and Gaia and what have you beforehand, but this is different. This is an order of magnitude beyond that, and it's available to everyone. I did want to leave with one interesting comment, and it sort of ties this what I just said about changes in lifestyle and what we've done, but it pertains to water. Water is so important. The resource is special and significant. It keeps us alive. It keeps everything alive, water. And so we're acutely aware of it down here where we're in drought and have been for decades. And it's a challenging thing, and there's always competition for it. But we discovered, first of all, in doing our research, what does water use mean, who uses it, and how much, and that sort of thing. Interesting statistic. They say, and you can Google this, I guess, the average American household, I don't know what that is, a party of 4 or, people in a house, use on the order of 300 gallons of water per day. And that, to me, as I look in hindsight, I didn't even know that before we moved down here, really thought about it until we started doing our research. What does that even mean? You're washing clothes, you're flushing the toilet, you're running water, your hands, you got a gallon going down the drain as you're washing your hand, all that kind of stuff. It adds up. Showering, geez, I'm going to sit in there for 20 minutes with this heavy duty shower going over me. Well, we have discovered first of all, we haul water. And so it is like chopping wood. It's like, this is my utility. This is precious. I created this. I brought it here. I need to care for it or I will not have it. And so what we have discovered is for our 27 chickens, for our greenhouse, for all of our water needs in our gardens, we use 500 gallons a month for our water. And we're good with it. We don't feel like we need more or anything else. It just, so many things change. When you start to plug into the environment, it tells you, you don't need that. You know, we're going to take care of you here. You're going to get what you need. And that is enough. And in fact, it's more than enough. It's overflowing, to go with that metaphor, you know, the feeling of love and spirit and the connectedness and the alive aspects of where we are. And so hope, yeah, I think there's every reason to hope. There's so many things you can do, a small thing, whatever it might be. And I've said this many times, you know, plant a bean in a cup. You know, whatever you do something that puts you in touch with an extra life force or something associated with nature. You know, don't cut your grass for 1 week. Do something that you think, you know what, this used to be a different way, and I'm going to go with that for now. But there are so many things that you can do in the city, in your house, outside. Again, planting gardens, growing a little bit of food, maybe not buying so much junk. You know, I don't know. There's so much you can do, but there's so many reasons to be hopeful because the resources are there. Gaia is helping and has so much wisdom if we just listen and plug in. I know it's not easy. The language is tough, you know, but you learn to speak a few words, and before you know it, you're conversing, and it works. So
a 7-year-old said, I love what you're saying. And to just put a button on that, a 7-year-old, you said language is tough, said to me the other day, I was at an electrification event, and she came up and she was just very gentle. And I said, why do you care about helping the earth, honey? And she said, we must take care of the earth because she takes care of us. I take care of her. She takes care of me. I take care of her. She takes care of Mama. I take care of her. She takes care of Bunny. And I said, there you have it. And I said, that's a bumper sticker, except I don't want to put it on a car. But I mean, right? Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chip. Everybody, thank you so much, Chip, for sharing this. You know, I know this is ongoing. Great. We'll have to have an update installment once phase 3 goes further along, but this is really fun to hear. Thank you so much, Nicholas, Judith, Colleen, for being here with me to be able to listen to this as part of our circle tonight. And folks who are listening or viewing, I mean, that pretty much wraps up this particular conversation. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And always, if you value, if you value what you heard here today, folks, please share this information. Okay. Yeah. We've got new Blue Marble podcasts are on www.blogtalkradio.com/CSNP. You can search for Blue Marble with Rev Charbert. You'll find the archive of these podcasts, including this one, which will air the 3rd week of November 2023 at the time of this recording, but it'll be there forever. Please go back and look at it, share it. You also can find on the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel these Green Faith Circle recordings of these wonderful folks and their wonderful stories of making a positive difference. So until next time, stay true and blue. Thank you for all the good you do. And hey, I hope to see you in the green space.